Hello. Yeah, I thought I should make another video. And it was spirit led. I try not to say as many idle words, say the least amount of idle words. I know we're human, and sometimes we can just say things and not comprehend it. But I'm understanding more with my walk with God that everything we say will be judged. So be careful with the words and the words that you put out. They're just not idle. They can help build someone up, and words can tear people down. And they can also tear people down by leaving them in idle mode. When you leave idle words or things that are not powerful, that are not beneficial and helpful to someone's spirit. So, um, yeah. So the reason why I got on here is to talk about why I left Jack. Now, Jack is a fictitious name, but this is a real story that happened to me in my life. And this is part of the reason why I have this channel. So I want to say this, like, nothing happens on an accident. Nothing. It might seem coincidental, it might seem accident. Everything happens for a reason. Um, with that being said, I'm going to tell you my story. So this happened like right after, I want to say after I was flying, after I became homeless, after I got back on my feet and went back to flying. I had this dream. It was so weird. When I say it was weird. It was weird. And it was almost like a crazy visitation that I had. I went to sleep. And I woke up. Well, the real me woke up. And I remember seeing in this dream when it was the real me, that it was these two like beings. I couldn't even remember. Yes, I can. I remember how they look and everything. One had like looked like a dog. The other one looked like it had like this little bowl thing with these antennas. It was weird. Oh my Jesus. Sometimes I get frightened even talking about the whole thing. But as I saw them in my room peering over me, it looked like they were going to take my life. And I was like, what is this being? But the real me, I was not afraid. Like, even though it felt scary, but at the same time, I wasn't going to back down. Like, and I know myself, I'm a person that's not, I won't back down. Like, it has to be a reason for me to back down. Even if I know I'm going to lose, I'm one of those people, kind of like a warring warrior kind of person. Like, I'm standing for what I stand for, no matter what. So I was like, if I have to fight these two things, I'm going to have to fight. I know I'm going to die, but I'm going to have to fight them. So anyhow, all of a sudden it was this big, huge angel that was sitting over my head. As I'm laying down and the real me started to come up, the angel told me to lie down. And it was so authoritative. It was almost like the voice of God. Like, I don't want to scare people, but I'm going to tell you the story. I'm not going to hold anything or sugarcoat anything, because it's important for you guys to know this, to understand why I left Jack. Okay. So this angel was like, lie down. What is going on here? You ain't gonna need my support. I'm gonna need my own support. Anywho, so how did I get in there? I need to put this on freaking airplane mode while I'm doing this, because I know it's about to be some extra and extra and extra. So anywho, and let's take the Wi-Fi off too, so people won't interrupt me in this video, because I'm finishing this video, y'all. So anywho, this angel tells me to lie down. So I hear the authority in the angel's voice, meaning the voice of God. So I lie down. So after that, God started showing me. I went back to sleep, but he was showing me in a dream certain things that was happening. And it's so crazy because I watched this lady. It was confirmation today. But the things that I saw in that dream, this was like 2013. I saw what has happened to me in 2020 now. So anyhow, I was like, what the heck is this? Then I woke back up. After that, my life, it was going up and down. But it was almost like I knew tests were coming, like these things were tests, and I had to act and conduct myself in a certain way. Like I could not be like I used to be, like it was a renewing of the mind, as we say, renewing of the mind. Like the old way that I would react to certain things, it was no longer feasible for me to act that way in order to get what I needed to go to the next step. So fast forward, things started getting even tougher. And I will say this: when you start walking closer with God, things get harder. People don't tell you that things get harder, but I understand how some people can lapse back because things get harder. When you're doing anything good and you're getting to a peak, things get harder and things get narrow and smaller because there are few people that are doing it. A lot of people are doing the same old because it's easier. You don't get attacked when you're doing things that everyone else is doing because it's expected of you to do what everyone else is doing, settle into the norm. But when you want to achieve something higher, it takes a different level of degree. It takes skill. So anyhow, things started getting tougher, and I ended up meeting this woman who she scared the crap out of me. I met this one woman, this one lady, and we started bonding. And I remember her name. Her name was Joy, because the reason we latched so close, and the reason I think so is because she was a little bit older than me, and she was around the same age as my sister that passed away was. And I mean, we were going out. We had that sisterly bond. We actually were supposed to move together and move to Indianapolis, I think, because she really wanted to go to Indianapolis again. And I was like, I really don't want Indianapolis. I'm more of a Chicago, like East Coast, like, even though I lived in the Midwest, I've lived in Chicago, I wanted to be East Coast or probably West Coast. That's just me. Anywho, after that, I ended up meeting a lady who was terrible. I mean, this lady was weird. And then I came across Jack. And I came across Jack actually before that, but it was more intensely how I got reunited with Jack through my neighbor who was nuts. So anyhow, I get up and I go and we form this relationship. The relationship is going good until I find out that one of the neighbor that I thought was nutsy, not the one that I had the bond with, not Joy, the one that I met through the lady named Joy. I find out that she was actually one of his exes. So then she was just going. It was just crazy. It was a lot of chaos. And during that time, I was going through the whole thing dealing with the pageant. I had just became, title, a title holder for my state, and doing all this. So I really wasn't focusing on it, and I was getting closer with God. So God was telling me like to get away from not only her, but to get away from Jack. And I'm like, why? Why is he saying this? Because Jack is so nice. Jack is so he's a sweetheart. But I started noticing afterwards, like I want to say like 6 months after we started getting, going together, getting into a deeper relationship, that Jack was very insecure. Jack had a whole bunch of issues. And not only that, some of the things that he was tied to, he started telling me the abuse that his mother suffered from his father. Some of the things they had to do because they were in these organizations and blah, blah, this. And this is why he didn't like, organizations, and he didn't like religious organizations. It just basically became to where it was an unequally yoked relationship. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, what am I doing now? Because the Jack that I knew when we first started talking, he knew what my focus was and how I was trying to get closer to God. And it's always been that way. With me, it has never changed because I've always had this walk with him, and I've always been to the point where, look, like, okay, Bill, I want to be closer to God as I get older. The things that I always prayed for that. Even when I was 3 years old, I can remember, because this used to be my constant prayer, and that's still my prayer today. I don't want to be the same way that I am now 3 years from now. I need to be better. So God help me to be that way. I don't want to do the same things that I used to do. Some of those things should be tearing off of me, you know. So anyhow, yeah, so I found out we're unequally yoked. Not only that, now he's doing things that I see the true McCoy in him. Things that are really that he knows that I don't like that he's doing, you know. One of the things that I noticed that he was doing was dealing with drugs. I've been a person that I've stayed away from drugs so so much, like, don't smoke cigarettes, don't, you know, I've always been that way because of how my parents were. You know, my mom got, you know, drugged and got into the penal system because of that, you know, because she was drugged. My father did drugs. So it was, to me, it was clean slate, like clean birdie. Oh, my ears is hurting. Like somebody stabbed my ears. Repeat that. Name of Jesus. Okay. So anyhow, as I'm noticing that he's smoking marijuana, he's hanging around people, he's hanging around a neighbor that he knows can't stand either one of us because we're in a relationship, and he's unhappy with his relationship. Not only that, it was a lot of humiliation and degradation. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, why am I even with this? So and then I started leaving. I was like, okay, you feel this way, I'm going to leave. And as I started leaving, he started changing, you know, and no one told me about how, you know, people with narcissistic personality disorders, how they act. You know, I know that he had antisocial personality disorder. But I mean, he was so belligerent to me. One time I was asleep. I'm going to give you the example of what happened. I don't want to go into super detail. I want to give you the things that I know will help you, you know, without exposing people, without, you know, doing things like that. I would go to sleep and he would get mad and he would dig his fingers in my chest just so I can wake up and say, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I know you were digging your fingers in my chest. And he was like, no, you're just going crazy. You're just hallucinating. And I know a lot of people are like, well, that probably could have happened because you could have had a dream like that. Let me tell you what I did, because I knew I was not going crazy, and this was happening over and over and over again. I put a camera inside the bedroom and inside the living room, so when I started dozing off, I can look at it and see what was going on. So I literally saw this with my own eyes, what he was doing. And I wasn't going crazy because I literally thought I was going crazy. So I ended up leaving Jack. So I'm like, I'm leaving Jack, you know, but right before that, you know, he would cry and say, I had this problem and I'm working it out and I'm going to counseling and blah, blah, this. So, and I'm like, I don't even care. We're good. Go ahead and go to counseling. I'm done. So after that, I would leave. I want to say about a week or two, I would see him come back. He would show up to my job. He would show up at different places. Like, you know, I'm so sorry. I need you back. I'm working on it, blah, blah, this. So I would come back, and it would take, like, the first time it took like a month for me to come back, but we still had this interaction. You know, I think we had like about 7 to 10 days away from each other. And after that, it was still more interaction going back in. But I will tell you, every time it got worse, it got worse, it got worse. Like, first it was the digging in the fingers. Then it was just attacking me and then telling me, oh, yeah, when I start to call the police, oh, yeah, they're going to take my side over your side because of this and that. And it's like, what? And then to actually have that happen to you, because I literally did call the police. And they were like, okay, we're not going to take anyone's side. One of you guys are going to jail, like, blah, blah, this. And I'm like, what? Like, it's not like I've called you time and time and time again. This is the first time I called you. And, you know, this has happened. But it's weird. The place that I lived in was kind of more geared towards looking at him just because he was older, the color of his skin. And because he was older, they thought that, eventually they started seeing what it was, but by then I was already ready, and I left, like, after so long. Um so as I'm going through this, I'm like, God, show me, oh no, I was about to leave the time before the last I was about to leave, but he came up and he told me, like, we're legally married and we need to work this out, and this is what God's plan is for in your life. Whoa. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, like, is this true? He's like, you remember this date when we met and blah, blah, this. And I remember the date, like, we were at a chapel, things did happen. So I was like, well, maybe we are married, because it was a wedding chapel. We were in Vegas, so I'm like, you know what? If I made this vow to God, and he knew that, he knew my passion towards God, and I will say this before I even go further. God will not want you to be in anything that he did not ordain. And God does not want you to be in any kind of relationship that is derogatory to you or bringing you down or casting you aside. There are times when people have moments and issues that they're working out and things don't always look pretty. And people, we are human. We do things that are not always right and are always good, and we need to forgive each other because we are human. We are not robots. We don't live in that perfect society. However, God knows the insides and outsides of people far better than you. And I think that is the reason why he was telling me he is not for me and to leave before all of this happened. But had I listened, I wouldn't have went through all the hardships and all the heartache that I went through. God chastises those that he loves. He's chastening those. I could have been dead during this situation because I ended up being poisoned. It was a lot of things that I went through that I could have avoided had I listened to the voice of God. So yeah. So as I, get the courage to get up and, they're telling me all this crazy stuff. He tells me that, we're married, blah, blah, this. He comes with these papers and I'm like, okay, well, let me try to work it out. So I'm working my darndest, like, okay, well, I guess I made this decision. I really didn't want this. And I'm like, I kept telling God, why did I do this? I'm so sorry. I repent, God, I repent. So God was just like, telling me, no, I was getting instances where people was telling me to leave. He had this. I was still flying at the time. And before I got the promotion as a manager of in-flight, I was just a regular flight attendant, just senior flight, just flying. I remember I got off for work, and when I got off, I noticed I got off at a different time. I was supposed to come home like a day later, but I got home a day earlier. When I got home, there was like so many people in our house. It was so many people in our house, and it was scary. And then I started seeing all these straws, like what? And I saw people moving. They were running. Like, I'm like, why are they moving, running out of the house? Kind of like when I get here. And he's like, you're not supposed to be home, blah, blah, this. So all I see is this white stuff. Like it looked like baking soda, y'all. This is how dumb I am, okay? So I'm like, what is going on? Like, blah, blah, this. And he's like, oh, I didn't know you was coming. I just had a couple of friends. And I'm like, what kind of friends? I've never seen these friends, blah, blah, this. So, they finally leave. And I'm like, what the heck? So he's like trying to, give me some money and get me to go to my family's, to go visit my family, which he hardly ever wanted me to do, which was 25 minutes away. Now, if you look at my other stories, you're going to see how, he really did not want me to go that way. And some of the lengths and the extent that he went to do that. So anyhow, I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I just want to find out what's going on. So finally, I ended up, leaving or whatever, and came back. And he was like, I guess you're gonna leave me now. And I was like, I guess so. And he's like, it always happens. He has this whole sob story, and I'm like, God, like, and he's like, well, you can't do this. You can't turn your back on God, blah blah this. And I'm like, what the heck? So I go and I was praying to God. I went to sleep, and we were in the same bed, and I started noticing like what happened? Yeah, I started noticing that my bed smelled different, y'all. Like the bed, you know how everybody has a scent. Not to say it's a bad scent or a good scent. Every human has a scent. And you know the scent in your room and in your house and the things like that. So I noticed that the scent, it was so a funky tart smell. Like it was like not like a musk smell, but it was a tart smell, like, and it smelled like a cannabis, but kind of a weird. It was weird. So I'm like, who was sleeping in the bed? And it was a oily. It was really, really oily. And I have a thing with like having oily sheets or oily bed. Like I have to change it. It's gross. So I'm like, who is this? And he's like, nobody's been in here. Blah blah this. So I'm like, and I remembered the smell. Now the smell that I smelled, I was just like, I remember this smell. I remember this smell, and I remember this person. So, anywho, I ended up going to sleep. He changed the covers, the sheets, or whatever. Went to sleep, and I remember I was having this battle. Like as I went to sleep, it was like I was in dream state, and I was literally having this battle. And I mean, this person, it was a group of people. First, it was a woman telling me to get out, and that she was his husband, and I was like, what? I mean, she was his wife. And I'm like, what? But she was older than him. And I mean, she was pale and white and she was going like this. And I'm like, first of all, who are you? And get up out my face. Like, get out my face. And she was like trying to mimic me. So I started fighting her. As I attack her, because she came like she was coming towards me. And I'm one of those people, like in real life and in spiritual, like if you come towards me, you're doing all this. And I feel like I'm threatened and I'm, telling you to get away. We're gonna have some confrontation. We're gonna have some issues because you're not gonna hurt me. So anyhow, as I'm seeing this in a dream, I'm fighting this woman. So I overcome her. I wake up, all of a sudden it's three more. And I'm like, some of them in robes, they like, get out, get out, get out. Ah! Doing all this. I'm like, I'm not going nowhere. So I'm fighting. I mean, every single night it was like that. So I was like, you know what? When I got up, I'm like, I've been in church long enough to know this is something demonic. I'm about to pray this on out because no weapon formed against me shall prosper. Every single tongue that rises up against me in judgment shall be condemned. So this is what I'm doing. I'm going into battle. I'm going into battle, y'all. So as I get finished going into battle, it's like the next day it was more and more and more and more. So finally, I want to say on the 8th day, I remember I got up and I was so weak, but I was still winning these battles. Like at night, I was still winning. And I was like, in the daytime, we had these smart TVs. I mean, it's way smarter than what I got now. But I mean, the TV, it was like you could touch the green light, whatever. This is in real life. Like we had this stuff because I lived really comfortable. So in the morning, I would just get up, put on my prayer music. I would go and read my Bible. I would get it together. When I say get it together, I had no time because I knew I just had a battle. So I'm getting ready to fight. I'm getting ready to prepare. So the 8th day, I remember I was talking to this woman I called my godmother, and you have to be careful with that. So anyhow, as I'm talking to her, I remember I was at the house and Jack left for work. I remember it was like this nasty presence that came in, and I saw this angel. This angel looked so real. This was an angel, and the angel had swooped me out of the house. I was right at the edge of our patio. It was swooped me out and told me to go. And I was like, what the heck? Went back in there. It swooped me out again. I was like, am I tripping? So I was like, oh my goodness, I gotta be tripping. Like something's going on. So I started praying. I left the house that night, came back. But after that, I stopped. What happened? I stopped sleeping. I think I stopped sleeping in that room with him, and things started getting a little bit better. But I still was praying. I was still praying. So I was still going through attacks, but I was still praying, like praying to God, like God deliver me, whatever this is. And I remember we just kept fighting. Me and him kept fighting. He kept drinking more. He wasn't even drinking like that. All of a sudden, he started drinking more. I found out that he was doing drugs again. It was heavy. And I mean, he was hanging around these crowds. And I'm like, God, like, what is going on? Now, mind you, I had just went through a process of being homeless. So I started seeing, I knew a lot about people who had addictions and what they did and how they operated. And the lady that I called, my godmother, she had a lot of uh, info on that. And I was doing a lot of outreach ministry with her, dealing with people with addictions because her husband used to be an addict and she used to, have that same issue. So, well, she didn't have, some people, this is what she told me. Some people get addicted and some people don't, which I do believe that. But her husband had an addiction. Her brother had one too. I think the whole family kind of. But anyhow, so I would call her and I'm asking her what's going on, blah, blah, this. And she would say, Bill, you're just so green. You're so green. I'm like, what does that mean? Now I know that means naive. And then I started talking to my mom because, of course, my mom's went through this. So my mom tells me, God is saving you. You need to get out before you end up like me. And I'm like, why would she say I end up like her? Anyhow, so I stay upstairs. I'm praying. I'm fasting. I'm praying. I'm working, oh yeah, I had transferred jobs. I had left flying, and because he didn't want me to fly, but because he said we had enough money, but then later told me I needed to get another job, which was all mind games, okay? But I gotta admit that God was showing me this. So anyhow, one time the last time, I was like the last 3 days of the 21 days that I was praying and fasting and everything. And he was trying to bring back up. I was getting so tired of his mind games and, telling me, doing crazy stuff and then trying to guilt trip me and say that, God told me this and blah, blah, this. And I'm like, well, what the heck? So, at the end, I remember this one dream and I was like, God, if this is not the place, I'm still going to work. You told me, you're not supposed to leave your husband. If this is not the place for me, God, please show me. Immediately, as I closed my eyes, God lifted me up. I went into this place. It wasn't like I was flying. It was literally like I was teleported kind of to this place. And God was showing me like I was not married. He told me I was not married. But at the time, I did not know it was God. I knew it was supernatural. I knew it was in the heavenly realms, but then I didn't know. But he was showing me, how I was going to be serving the homeless, and how this individual, which was he didn't show me if it was a woman or a man, but it was this entity, and it was wide open, and the portals were wide open. How I was going to be in the back seat of this individual's car, and it was a gray car, and I'll be riding past this homeless shelter. So I'm like, I got up and I'm like, what is this? So I'm like, God, if it's your will, then let it be done. So the next 3 days, that was the last 3 days. So the next 2 days, I had the battles again because I went downstairs and I slept with him. The day before, I went and slept up. So what happened after that? Oh yeah, I slept up. When I slept up, it was like I felt some peace. Even though I felt like I was being attacked, I felt like it was less attacked. So, and he was like, why don't you sleep with me? Blah, blah, this. And I'm like, And it was another thing that God had me to repeat. And I'll talk about that in a later video when it's needed. Like when we were having interactions with each other, even then, like, I thank God for covering me during my ignorance, because yeah. So anyhow, as I'm going, the last couple of days, God was showing me like these other places, and he showed me this place, and it was a church. Now the church had this guy, he was a pastor, he was preaching. He looked like the pastor that I had at the time, but he looked disfigured, if I can say that. So I'm like, he looked like him, but he looked like a distorted version, like he was torn up or something. And he looked human, but he didn't look like the pastor that I had was an attractive person. The man that I saw in the dream favored him, but he didn't. He looked like an older version of him, and his tooth was yellow, like some decalcified kind of thing. So anyhow, as I'm in the dream, I see this guy preaching, and I'm sitting there in the pews, and it's an altar right there, and the guy is like, the pulpit is right here, the people in the choir in the back, and I'm right here, like in the pews, like looking in the pews, and it's the altar. So this man goes down, he's preaching, and I'm like, this building looks so raggedy. Like, is this a spiritual meaning? Like, what is this? It was like paint off the walls, craziness. He starts talking, and all of a sudden, 3 frogs come out. Big, nasty frogs come out, y'all. When I say 3 big, nasty frogs, 3 big, nasty frogs. Excuse me, you guys, because my power is about to go out, and I need to finish this. So I'm going to try to get the little power for it. Sorry. I know this is what happens when you are impromptuing and you are recording. You're doing impromptu recording because I really haven't set any time for this because there's been a lot of work that God has had me to do lately. So anyhow, so I'm going back to how the gentleman, the man was preaching, and these 3 frogs came out of him, and it was like it didn't come out his mouth. It was like the first dream, it didn't come out of his mouth. It came out of his belly, like out of his chest. It was weird, and it was like these frogs were so big. They were bigger than me. Like, they were huge frogs. And all I can remember when I got up, I was like, what the hell is this? And I got up and it said false prophet. So I'm getting there and I'm like praying. Like, God, whatever this is, let me go through it. If I'm supposed to see this and I'm supposed to deal with this, let me go through it. So then the next day, I have another dream. And it's showing me that same building, but I was in a choir stand. And the person was talking and they were like next to me. And all of a sudden it was 3. The frogs, just frog. It was like little frogs, like, but they weren't as big as the man who was preaching, but it was in the same building, in the same raggedy church. And I was like, this church is way worse than I lived in a hood and I never seen no church look this raggedy. Like, so anyhow, and when I got up, God had shown me some stuff. And not only that, when he got up, he was like, he had this dream. Oh yes. So that was the second before the last day. The last day, I forgot about this. The last day, I had a dream about me going into a cave. It was weird. I was into this cave, and in the cave, it was this woman luring me. But the woman that was luring me looked like somebody that I knew. Familiar spirited, that's what's doing. But anyhow, I went there, and the other person, first it was a guy that was luring me in, and then they went to his wife. As the wife came in, she was half human and like half snake. And as she's doing this, she's wrapping herself around me. And I'm like, what is she doing? And the scales were so black. When I say black, they were black, like the darkest black you could ever see. And as I'm trying to like scave it, because I don't know how I had a sword, but my sword was not, it was hitting her, but it was like the thing was still going, like her scales was still going. But I remember that the snake, she started squeezing me more tighter and tighter and tighter. But I noticed that God had shown me his name, the husband's name, but not her name, and showed me my name. And like, my name was different than Bill. That I'm going to say that. And all I know that I was going to overcome it. Like, I was going to overcome her and take her. Like, that's all I can remember. And then some of that part I can't really all tell you. But I got up and I'm like, I remember even making this video. God, thank you, Lord Jesus. Cover. Okay. Anyhow, that's bringing to my remembrance. This, even recording this, God is good. So I was like, God, if I'm supposed to go through this, let me go through this. I said a prayer after that. It was like a fiery prayer. And when I got up, like the rest of the morning, because I stayed up most of that morning until like about 7. And then I laid down and I got back up. And I was talking to Jack. So Jack gets up and he says he has this scary dream. And I'm like, I was telling him part of, my dream. And I'm like, it was weird. He was like, I had a dream with snakes, and he starts talking about, before I even tell him about the dream about me having snakes, I just told him part about how I was getting choked, but I never told him it was with snakes. He tells me that he had this, he was in his garden, and it was these snakes all around him, different colors, all different colors, and they were all eating each other up. They were eating each other up, and he said the yellow one ate the red. And I was like, was it a black snake there? He said that was the only color that was not there. He was like, it was white, blue, purple, red, yellow. He was like, but the yellow snake ate the red. Was it the red snake ate the yellow snake, or the yellow snake ate the red snake? I think it was the red snake ate the yellow snake. And what he did, he had this big sword. He said he don't know where that sword came from, and he cut the head off. Like, one was eating each other. And I was like, when I heard it, I was like, oh, that sounds kind of fake. But it made me think, like, okay, all these things are coming against you, but one is going to overcome and take it, and you'll be able, like, it's going to kill the other one, and you're going to be able to kill it off at the head. That's all I said to him. So we're going on, and he's talking about, all of a sudden he was talking about breaking up. And I'm like, wait a minute, you was just talking about working everything out and that we're married and blah, blah, this. But I remembered, God brought to my remembrance that we were not married, that he has somebody else for me. So I was crying a little bit, and I was a little afraid, because I'm like, I've given everything to be in union with you, and you literally forced me to do it, even though I said yes to it, but you knew that I was reluctant, but I was like, I can't even get mad at that. I got to keep going, because God has shown me. So he was like, okay, just, sign these. What did he didn't say sign the papers. He was like, just get out. And I was like, okay. And I left. And once again, he pulled me back, because he was like, where you going to go? Blah, blah, this. But he wanted more control. So one day, that was the 21 days. After the 21 days, we had our retreat. We had a timeshare. I forgot about that. That was the climax. We had a timeshare. So we had this time off, and he was like, I'm using my vacation during this time, knowing that he had me to quit my job. So I didn't have vacation. I had this new job. And he's like, well, if you can't go, then that's on you. I was like, no, all I got to do is tell them to go. Like, why would you want to go on a timeshare by yourself? Mind you, he had somebody else living in another one of our timeshares, like had double rooms at the timeshare, because the girl that was working at one of the bars that we owned was down at the other end. So anyhow, we were supposed to fly to New England. Now, mind you, I live in Indiana. We lived in Indiana at that time. We were supposed to fly. I have legacy status where I can fly, and my spouse flies for free. The only thing we do is pay the taxes international. And if we want a definite spot, we get a huge discount. So at the last minute, he tells me that we're not flying, that we're driving. After I paid the definite tickets, which was only like 20% of, the actual ticket, because I wanted definite space, and I could not get that money back. So we get in a car. I was like, are we getting a rental? No, we're going to use your car. So we use my car, my new car, and drive 15 hours to New England to go to this timeshare. And at this timeshare, this is where things started getting really weird. Like, he didn't want to go anywhere. He wanted to stay in. He wanted, I couldn't go anywhere. But he wanted to go out and to go out by himself. So I'm like, what is going on? Usually when we're at the timeshare, we're going together. We're in the pool. We're doing this. We're doing that. And that didn't happen. It was just weird. And I ended up being by myself. Now, fortunately, I started meeting other people that I knew a couple of years back at the timeshare. We started reuniting and seeing each other, and we were out, having a good time. That's when he wanted to come out. I think what broke the ice was, the night before we were at the bar, and we were playing pool. Well, they were playing pool, because I can't really play pool. But yeah, they were playing pool, and they noticed how rude and how mean he was, and the things that he was saying to put me down. And he's like, well, we're not going to be together and blah, blah, this. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, okay, if you feel that way, then fine, And I go and I'm talking to these group of people, and it was like, I think it was like three guys and two girls. So that gave him the illusion that we're all dating or whatever. So he left, he went to his room, and the next day it was time for us to leave. Now, I packed my bag, I got my things ready to go, and he's nowhere to be found. And I'm like, what's going on? It's been a whole hour. It's time for us to leave. And I'm like, where are you? He's like, he's at the front. I was like, stay there. Well, he's in the front office. I should have been there, blah, blah, this. And I'm like, well, stay there. Then I'm going to come and go that way. So as I walk, it's like 5 minutes to go to the front. So as I'm taking my walk to go there, I get there and I notice he's not there. And I call him again. And I'm like, where are you? He's like, he's at the hotel, the timeshare room. And I'm like, how is that possible when you knew that I was walking here? Like, what are you doing? So he tells me to stay where I'm at. He's coming to get me. Does not show up, y'all. I was like, what the heck is going on? So I'm calling the people like who were in the timeshare next to me, in the room next to me from the front desk. And I'm like, hey, have you seen Jack? They're like, Jack hasn't been over here. I'm like, he says he's been going back and forth, blah, blah, this. And I'm like, what the heck? So I'm like, did he leave me? Because I've had instances before where he would just get up and act like he's leaving me. So, yeah. So I get up and I'm going back and forth. I don't see him. So after that, I was like, you know what? I called him and I was like, I'm just going to call the police and I'm just going to have them take me to the airport and go home. So as I'm doing that, all of a sudden he comes back and he's like, why did you do that? I've been trying to look for you and blah, blah, this. And we're arguing in the car. Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you guys. The time there, we were arguing. He was trying to start a fight with me the entire 15-hour ride before we got there. And even when we left, he was trying to start an argument. We had a big argument from the time we left for like 3 hours. After that, I just shut down. I didn't say anything. I blocked him out. He was trying to be nice. Oh, you want something to eat? After that, I was done. I was like, I'm not doing this again because I see that this is a roller coaster. And plus, not only that, I was having a lot of help and people that were around me. I had started putting myself around people who knew about this more because I was working at a shelter and they knew about what was going on, the power struggles and the things like that. So then when it happened, they were connecting me to other people and like, okay, if you want to get out right here, you can get out and just disappear. And I was like, well, what about the little stuff that I had? So anywho, we get home and I'm like, okay, wow, I'm here for like 40 something minutes. Okay, you guys, this is important. So I get home and I'm like, I don't think I can do this again. So, I tell my new employer, I went back to work and I told my new employer, I'm like, you know what? I don't think I can work here anymore because I'm dealing with a lot of abuse. And it was like, we kind of figured that because everything just changed all of a sudden. We all figured that. So they all kind of knew. I never told them what was going on, anything like that. They was like, you were so peppery, you were so happy. And then all of a sudden it was just, they was like, and we just looked at your face and the marks and everything else. And I was just like, okay. So, and they was like, we hope that you get better or whatever. And I was looking for a transfer. My manager gave me approved the transfer. It was the store manager, I think. It was the store manager or the store assistant manager. It was a woman too. So ironic because I was telling her what happened and she wanted me to endure. She told me to stay with Jack and endure it a little bit longer before she do the transfer. She wanted me, and I was like, how long is that going to take? She wanted me to stay for 3 months. I could have been dead by 3 months. And it just, the more that she talked about it, because I tried to do that, the more she talked about it, even when I left, she wanted me to go back to Jack. And it started making me think, like, did they have any kind of connections? Because he used to do that with people who he had connections with, and he had a lot of connections then. So I was just like, I'm not going to take this. My life is way, worth way more than this job. And it was a job. It was a low paying job too, y'all. It was a low paying job. Like, now I laugh at it. Like, how did I leave flying and going to this job? But anywho, and it didn't have a God purpose. But anywho, so, I was like, okay, I got to do something. Like, something has to go on. So I noticed, oh yeah, that night, it was that night. I came home and I was supposed to work like I think like 12 hours or something, but I ended up working 4. And they had so many people and they were like, whoever wanted to leave can leave. And it was like, I know, Bill, you want to leave. And I was like, actually, I do, because I was working like 12, 13 hours trying to get extra money and giving it mostly to him and work, getting my bills and stuff, but, providing for this lifestyle that we have. So as I go in, I go downstairs because we slept in the basement. Like, we had bedrooms in the basement. Like, it was a gym, a fitness, a gym center in our house. It was, yeah. So anyhow, I don't want to tell you guys the whole setup, but I get up and I go, I go to bed. I go downstairs and I'm like, I'm gonna sleep with him. As I open the door, I notice that I smell the same odor that I smelled before. And I'm like, this odor is just disgusting. It reminds me of somebody, but I couldn't put my nose, couldn't figure it out. So as I turned on the lights, we had this dimmer light. I got a dimmer light now, but it lifts up to where it gets lighter like that. It's not just a regular switch. It goes from dark to light like that. So I usually just turn it on just a little bit, just so I can, get out of my things and walk to my side of the bed, because my side is on the further side. So as I turn it up, I see a head. I see a head full of blonde, and I'm like, "What the heck?" I look a little closer, and I'm like, "I know he ain't got no woman in this house." Like, and it's not a woman; it is a man. And as a matter of fact, it's my neighbor. So the neighbor that always comes and complains and talks about our relationship and talks about how his ex-fiance left him for an older man, and she just wanted his money or something like that. He was a chemist too. Just, he was out of this world weird. But I didn't like him because his aura, his spiritual, all of that was bad. It was bad. Okay. But I see why. So anyhow, I saw that and I'm like, that's why I have to use a fictitious name. So I'm like, I wanted to get up and stab him. I'm not gonna lie. This is all the emotions that I had. I was angry. I was bitter. I was just like, why? You got me doing all this and you're doing this behind my back. Like, if you wanted to be with this person, why didn't you say that? Like, so I shut the door. I turned off the light. I shut the door. I talked to two my closest friends at the time, which was kind of the reason how I ended up getting here. And I told her and I told the my other friend, what happened. And I was just crying, and I just went upstairs into one of the rooms in the main floor and shut the door, and I went to sleep. And I was like, you know what? That's my time to leave. So after that, when he left for work, I ended up getting my items. And oh yeah, no, when I went to sleep, God was like, do you trust me? Do you trust me? Do you trust me? And I was like, I'm sorry, God. I'm sorry, God. This is the conversation that I'm having in this dream. So I got, the next day, I was like, he went to work. I got up. I slowly was packing my things anyway, because a lot of people was telling me I had started putting things in storage, all that. Saving money. On the trip, he had burned $900. He found $900 that I was saving and burnt the money. So, and I told my mom that, and she was like, yeah, you got to get away. Like, so that day when he went to work, I packed up the little stuff that I did have, except this little crazy looking dress that this woman gave me. And I'll talk about that dress later, because it's the reason why I left it. And I left. I did not know where I was going. I did not know what was going to happen. I just left and dealt with it that way. I went to family's house, but I really didn't want to go over there because I knew the setup. I knew that it was a lot. It's a lot of issues dealing with baggage that I have with my family and the baggage that they have with themselves, and some of those issues, and I didn't want to fall prey to those. So I ended up, I was like, I'm going to go find, somewhere else to go. And I did, God had it to the point where All he needed for me to do is to surrender. And that is why I left Jack. Now, after that, things got a lot hectic, but I can say this. Almost everything that God showed me in those dreams about, him and what was going on and what was going on in my life, they came to manifestation. It would have never went that way if I wouldn't have taken a chance and listened to the voice of God and adhered to God's calling for my life, that I wouldn't have been able to step into my purpose. The reason why I'm making this video is that I want to express to each and every person that comes across this page that God's ways are not our ways. He thinks way ahead, like he knows everything before they even start out, before the enemy even tries to attack it. He allows things to happen. Everything has to go through God. So put your trust in him. Had I not leaned on God and finally surrendered my life to him and followed what he told me, I wouldn't be in the place that I'm at now. Now I'm in a place where I love where I live at. I love the spiritual state that I'm at because I'm closer to God, and nobody could have gave me this relationship but him. During that time, I had to go through this wilderness period where I had to give up some things to get closer to him. A lot of people, that was another reason why I made this video too, because I started seeing this lady and she was talking about how God was coming again and things like that. And she was putting so much fear into everything. And it's like, God doesn't give us no spirit of fear. Now he tells us, yes, he's coming. Yes, he's coming. He is coming sooner than we think. I definitely not even believe that. I know it, without a shadow of a doubt. But he also tells us, don't be fearful and be of good courage and to press forward. If he's letting you know that he's coming, he has something for you to do, and it's just a warning. It's a time for you to get right and to get yourself in alignment and to get ready for things. He takes care of his own, even though things have to come and things have to come to pass and we have to face things and obstacles in life. You have an assurance of knowing that God does exactly what he says. He never lies. He keeps his word. No matter if you keep your word or not, he keeps his word. And I'm grateful for it because I wouldn't be in the place that I am right now. And I wouldn't be secure in knowing that if I lost my life today, I will be in his hands. I will be in God's hands. I have that security in knowing that God cares for me more than I can ever care for myself. He is the Alpha and the Omega. He is the beginning and he is the end. He is my provider. He is my healer. He's my comforter. He sent angels that nobody, that I won't be trampled on, that my foot won't be trampled over. He's carried me when the enemy tried to take me out. I'm saying literally, I've gotten to a point to be fearless in announcing that and proclaiming that. There are a lot of people that know the power of God and they are fearful because of the things that God has done for them, that when they tell it, it's so profound and so prolific that the average listener thinks that you're nuts. They think that you should be in an asylum. And I am here to say that it is okay because eventually they will have that point. We're not here to make people believe us. We're here to tell the truth and to point to the righteous one. I'm going to point to God. I'm going to point to God. And that was the reason why I made that decision to leave, Jack, because God was showing me, he told me, and he constantly showed me. And then that last day, that was even more confirmation. Do you trust me? Do you trust me? Do you trust me? Now fast forward, when I saw those dreams with those that church and everything, I literally saw what I saw. It wasn't I thought it was a partial dream. Like how some people dream of physical and some people dream illustrationally, if I can say, metaphorically. Things can be metaphorically. Like think about how when oh my goodness, what was that guy? It was in the Bible, and he was Joseph. Oh yeah, Joseph. Yeah, everybody talk about Joseph, but how Joseph was a dream interpreter. People talk about the miracles that he had with having these dreams, but he was able to interpret dreams as he got older. And that's how he became the governor. He was interpreting these dreams. He interpreted the dream of the baker, and he interpreted the dream of the was it the baker and the butler? Yeah, the baker died and the butler lived. Remember? And they was up and he was in prison unrighteously, but he was still doing his calling. He was still doing what what he was supposed to do. Oh shoot. Yeah, so yeah, and it also reminds me, do what you're supposed to do. Do it in and out of season. God was training me. Like this time was training season. When I say training season, training season. You guys look at my other videos when I talk about how I was doing things while I was going through. This is not to give glory to me. This was to give glory to God, to the Most High God. You have to trust him. You have to trust him. And it also gave me confirmation when I make videos like this or put anything out, it's not just for me. It's not just for you to grab it. It gives me clarification in the direction that he wants me to go, and not to be fearful myself, because I don't like to speak online. Okay. That is a huge issue. But God was telling me that I'm going to speak around many nations. I'm going to be doing things. And I was so shocked when God showed me this like 7-8 years ago, and it's coming to fruition, you know. Yeah, so don't be fearful. Put your trust in him. And that's mainly the reason why I left. People think like I left just because, Jack was abusive, just because of that. No, there are things. Sometimes you have to be in relationships, just like a David and a Saul. David could have left Saul, but if he would have left Saul, he would have lost his anointing. He would have lost his passage through the power. That's just like Joseph. Joseph could have left his brothers and be like, you know what, they haters, whatever, I'm done, and not been in that pit. But that pit, he understood. And then when he got out the pit, and when he was the governor, and when, and his brothers wanted to repent and say they're sorry for things, he said, no, count it all on joy, man, because this is what God made this thing that you thought for evil. He turned it in for good, for his glory. That's the same thing that God was showing me. Like all this stuff, it happened because of his design, and everything that happened to me was for his glory, was for God's glory. And I'm not ashamed of it anymore. I'm not, distressed over who's going to receive it or not. I'm just grateful for the experience because it helped me to get where I needed to be. And when you're fulfilling your purpose, it's no other feeling because God is with you. You can't fulfill your purpose without God. So, and it's no other feeling. You're able to stand, when people are doing crazy things. This is the whole reason for this. Stand. I wasn't supposed to, I didn't plan on making this video because I'm in my kitchen right now. But, I felt like I needed to do that and to stand on the truth, stand on God's word. It was 2 videos that made me think about this, and it was this woman talking about her out of body experience. How, what is her name? I don't know her name. Let me see, because it's still on my doggone page. But it was talking about how this woman, how she had this out of body experience through drugs, which I don't condone drugs. She also talked about how she don't condone drugs, but she talked about how God saved her and how angels was around her and surrounding her. Let me see. Hello, Brooklyn. That's what it is. Okay. All right. So her name on YouTube is called Hello, Brooklyn. So if you guys get a chance to look at that, definitely look at that. And okay. It said, I overdosed. I saw angels and God, out of body experience, ... testimony. So, and I kept seeing this video, but I never clicked on it to look at it until today. And then the video that I saw before, it was this one woman, and she was in the wilderness. She was like in the country. I won't say the wilderness. She was in the country, but she was talking about how God was coming soon. And She started talking about her testimony and her dream and things like that. I don't know how this happened. I had to ask God, like, please help me, because if this woman is telling the truth, or it's my flesh, I'm not supposed to judge. But something over me told me that this woman was not telling the truth. Is Jesus coming back? Yes. Is he coming back soon? Yes, I do believe that. But I felt in my spirit. See, you can feel when somebody is telling the truth, especially when you're walking with God. When you had an experience with God, God's word never lies. So when you tell people, don't understand, when you lie and you have, like, people have God in them, you can attest the lie. God, the Holy Spirit will direct you to a lie. Like, I've been a liar and I've seen people lie to me. And how the Holy Spirit corrected me. Okay. So I got that from that other lady's video. But the lady who was called on the thing called Hello Brooklyn, when she talked about it, and I have a lot of clients that talk about this experience. Hopefully I'll have some of them that are out into society, the ones that reach out to me, hopefully give them their testimony so you guys can hear it from the horses, what they say from the horse's mouth. How drugs is a wavelength and a conduit. Because when I tell people that, they don't really understand that. But if you lived in another country and you lived in different cultures, you know about that a lot more than the typical Western hemisphere of the United States. And a lot of people know in the States too. They just either try to hide it, or they just, a lot of people are um, uneducated on it, but there are quite a few people who know. So which this video is not about, but I just know I needed to make that video, and whoever it is that needs to hear that, take it for whatever God has given it to you for. Take me out of the picture and just listen to the scenario, because I know there are a lot of people who are in relationships that are unequally yoked. And I posted another video before this, and I talked about how sometimes things that don't look like they're bad are actually bad for you. This was a case, as an example. When I first started out with this relationship, he was very chivalrous. He was very nice. He was very polite. Things were very good. They were on the up and up. Okay. But God told me in that instant it was not right. And I suffered the consequences, because people don't want to talk about the things that they've done wrong. I'm telling you about the things that I've done wrong, as well as the things that Jack and everyone in that situation did wrong. Okay. That's what you want to look at it wrong. I did wrong because I didn't listen to the voice of God. That's the main thing, because that would have saved everything. And I would have been not in this scenario. I probably, God makes things happen anyway for his good. So I probably would have been further along. But God can catapult you into the place that you're supposed to be in. So I'm not worried about that. I'm just glad that I had the opportunity to come back to God and to say, God, please forgive me. And if you have that opportunity, which you have now because you're looking at me, say, God, please forgive me, and actually turn away from it. And if you don't think that you can turn away or leave a relationship, ask God to pull that relationship from you. I've had those instances where I knew that I was weak, that God literally made people walk out of my life, and I literally had to laugh. I had one of the relationships that I recently got out of. Before, I was like, I knew this person was horrid, and I was like, God, please let me, before the relationship even got deep. That was so weird. Like, God was delivering the Holy Spirit to me because he knew I was weak. And I was like, let this person leave. And he literally said, I'm going to leave you because, I want to see other people, and because you're into this God thing. And it was like, okay, okay. So, yeah, ask the Holy Spirit to depart. Let those people in those places depart from you that are not supposed to be there. So, And don't be fearful. God will work it out. If you are sincere and you really want to turn, he will make it happen. He is, because it's not your will, it's his will. Let his will be done. And if it's not for you, God didn't make it for you, then it's not gonna work. So and he ain't gonna try to keep it together neither. Y'all be trying to keep stuff that's just horrible. Keep these relationships that's just horrible for you together. No. I tried to do that too. Pointed example. Get up and leave. Get up and leave. I learned that not only with that, but with my business, with everything. So yeah, trust God. Trust God. That was the reason why I left Jack. What else? That was also the reason why I didn't turn back to Jack. Now I know it was showing me, like God had showed me that I was going to return back, but some things are going to be definitely different. Even though I really didn't want what I saw to happen, it's going to happen anyway. But yeah, don't hold on. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be saved. You deserve to be what you are designed to and called to do, what God called you to do. Yeah, on that note, hopefully something I said or done will help you on your journey. Please stay tuned to Journey to Jerusalem, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.